Hello, everybody. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson. The large-scale storm track across the lower 48 is a-changing as we begin the new year, something we talked about in earlier videos. In this video, we're going to look at this active pattern. We're going to compare a couple of models and look at how this, wintry pattern will impact the nation with the potential for some big-time snow. But we'll also take a big grain of salt with this because this is a model that goes out, several days. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about what you can expect and what you should keep your eyes on with your local forecast to stay up to date with what you need to know as, 2024 begins with the pedal on the floor.
Now, a Hutch's weather update with meteorologist Hutch Johnson.
All right, everybody. My name's meteorologist Hutch Johnson. 26 years here in the upper Midwest of broadcast meteorology, research meteorology, and teaching college level meteorology. You see a lot of videos out there. Let's talk about this meteorologically. What is going to happen? Now, to talk about this, I am putting up an American model that you saw behind me just moments ago. This model goes out to the 18th of the month, so it gets us well into the middle of the month. There's a couple of things you're going to notice about this trend. That the storms that move across the lower 48 are taking a very similar path as we go through the next couple of weeks, getting us into the middle level of the week. Now, to highlight a couple of things, you see some counties here in the southwestern United States. The first wave of storms has prompted National Weather Service offices in the mountains of California to issue winter storm warnings. Winter storm watches have just been issued in New Mexico for the first wave of storms, with winter weather advisories that you see over there in the purple. Now, here is what you need to know. As we start from right now, you're going to see, here goes. One wave move from the west coast through the southern Rockies, amplify, and head toward the mid-Atlantic states with the potential for snow. Here comes wave 2 and a big storm that could impact the Great Lakes. Here's wave 3 and wave 4 and wave 5, all taking a very similar pattern. We have, as we begin the month of January, a cold pool of air that has settled into the nation's midsection. A little cooler, not Arctic yet, but it's going to get colder. And that is going to help steer with this stubborn molasses air mass in place in the northern plains. The storm track around much of the central and northern plains, with the active weather being in the south and both coasts. Let me draw this out for you. Each and every wave of energy moving from west to east across the United States makes its way off the Pacific Northwest into the southern Rockies. It, fades away and then picks up energy as it moves through the Gulf Coast and heads up the Atlantic seaboard. Each of these systems will likely take its own path. And this forecast is not going to pan out exactly like you see it here. But what we can do is take a look at wave number 1. Look at some of the potential for impacts that we are starting to understand on the West Coast, closer to where this system makes landfall on the lower 48. Let's take a look at that. We'll do that right here with this view. But you can certainly see the storm track from the Pacific Northwest for all 4, maybe even 5 of these waves is very similar to the old pink arrow Hutch drew up there. Now let's take a look at the snowfall potential with this system as we head into the next few days. I want to caution you, what you're looking at is what we call in meteorology forecast model guidance. This is a model of the atmosphere, and the model of the atmosphere takes calculations and calculates how much snow we may get over the course of the next 10 to 18 days. Now, you're going to see some folks posting on here that we could be seeing hundreds of inches of snow in certain areas or dozens of inches of snow in other areas. Is that something that we know? Not at all. In fact, the farther out in time that we get with our computer models, the less accurate they tend to be. But if we take a look at this first storm and the track it's going to take, models are starting to come into some sort of an agreement on that. And by models, I'm going to focus on the American model, the one I was showing you, through the 18th, with that active storm track from the West Coast through the Gulf Coast and on the East Coast, keeping things quiet in the Central Plains. We're going to talk a little bit about the snowfall potential with wave 1, and then we'll compare the model that you saw here, the American model, with the European model. And we'll talk a little bit about where we think there's higher confidence in some impactful weather. Let's start with a look back at the American model and take a peek. Now, this system has several waves of snow making its way through, and I'm going to get us a nice view of the United States here, and now we'll put this up for you. Okay, take a check of this. The colors that you're seeing on this map are accumulating snow with wave 1. You notice as it makes its way on the Pacific Northwest and into the southern Rockies that we start seeing blue shades there. That's snow potential. There's an exiting system through Quebec and portions of northeast Canada, and that could impact many in the northeastern United States as well. But this is the main event out here in the West, where we have winter storm warnings in California, winter storm watches for you in the New Mexico mountains, and even the Arizona mountains have a winter weather advisory, while much of the nation's midsection stays cool. You're looking at a timestamp, and I'll point out where this is. It's the 4th of January through 9 o'clock at night. So the impacts will be felt out west as we zoom in and take you into places like Twin Falls, Idaho, western Idaho, south of Boise, the elevated terrain there that takes you into western Washington as well as Oregon. Heavy snow potential with that. Now the pinks, that's pretty ridiculous snow. Take a look at where the warnings are though. They fit nicely. See the green colors that you see here? Those are snowfall potential. How much snow might we see by the 4th? This is the American model. We'll glide through and we see in the elevated terrain, this says 16.7 inches. So just know this, in the mountains of California, snow is needed. And it's going to happen. And the chances of over 8 inches of snow, my confidence is high. Will we see a lot of areas with 16 inches of snow? Maybe only on the peaks. Another thing to keep in mind with these models, the American model that you're looking at here that goes out 18 days, the European model that goes out 9 to 10 days, those models are large scale models. And the distance between grid points is a long ways away. And because of that, it tends to show very heavy precipitation over a much wider area than we usually see by these systems as they work their way through. Now, how about the mountains of New Mexico, outside of Albuquerque, outside of places like, Guyman and Santa Fe? Let's take a look. Now, as we slide around, we can see snowfall amounts. In the mountains of the desert, we're going to see elevated amounts over 4 inches for some. And in the watch counties, remember, they're highlighted in yellow by your National Weather Service office, could see over 6 inches, maybe even over 8 inches. Now, what a winter storm warning is when the expectation is there for significant wind and snow to impact the potential dangerous travel conditions through the mountains. So keep that in mind and stay abreast of the forecast as we go through the next 2 days in the southwest and south central United States. Now we can carry this through to the East Coast. The farther out we get in time, keep in mind that the lower our confidence gets in these models. Here it comes out toward the East Coast, and look at this. We're getting whacked like a mole. Whack-a-mole out here is heavy snow potential. Why? Why did it go through the Gulf Coast states? Well, not a lot of snow down there, just simply too warm yet. And I'm sure that most of you are happy about that, but you will get heavy rain from this system where the snow, and that's what we're tracking here, is going to start really increasing because this storm is going to grab a warm water and air with moisture in it from over the warm Atlantic waters. And it's going to throw it up the elevated terrain of the Appalachians. So anywhere from the Ohio River Valley, from Louisville through Columbus, Ohio, look at Pennsylvania. These pinks and the greens you see there, elevated snowfall potential. The time frame and timestamp on this is noon on the 7th of the month. So it's a week away. This is going to change. This is going to shift. Maybe hundreds of miles, 100 miles or more in either direction here. And maybe the intensity will shift as well. As the storm makes landfall, we'll have a better idea. But the way it stands now, this American model is saying there could be potential for significant snow. See the old bullseye there? About 11.3 inches in central PA. And as we move the map around a little bit, where you see the greens and in the elevated terrain in and around western PA, we could see upwards of maybe 10 inches or more of snow in isolated spots, the way it looks now. Again, this all can and will change. So pay attention to your local National Weather Service offices. Now, this is highly dependent on the track. Do you see the white in and around Boston here? Boston, you guys could see some significant snow from this system, but the exact track of it, as you know, if you live in these areas, is hugely important on how much snow you get. Pay attention to your local National Weather Service forecasts. Now, we've taken a look at this. Now we've taken a look at that. Now, what about that good old-fashioned European model? When we get farther out in time, well, the European model has shown a propensity to be just a whole lot gooder sometimes at those far out forecasts than the American model. Not always, but let's take a look at what this one is forecasting. To do that, I'm going to load it up on another platform here, and we'll take a peek. Now, this is the European model, and this model here only goes out about 10 days instead of all the way to the 18th. So let's keep that in mind. And we're only going to look at the first few days and the first wave, because why create this unsettled feeling about 4 or 5 systems making their way through the East Coast or central southern plains, and we don't really even have an idea. Now, this model carrying us out through the 3rd, which is your day on Wednesday, shows snow developing in the mountains of California, of Utah, of Idaho, all the way down into the mountains of the southwestern United States in Arizona and New Mexico. So both models are in agreement that the West Coast, the Southwest, the mountains of California, and even the mountains of northern New Mexico will see snow. Now, notice this here in the central part of the panhandles of Texas, Oklahoma, and southeast Colorado, some heavier band of snow showing up in the dark blue colors there. Carry this out, and this is Thursday night. Now we go to bed, and it creates heavy rain where we need it very badly in places like Louisiana. So with the deficit of rainfall, we'll take what we can get there. This is by the midday hours on Friday, and then that storm system as we head into the weekend, the first full weekend of the new year. Look at the snow. Again, the track looks fairly similar. Heavy snow through the Virginias, through western PA, and heading up the East Coast. Now, as we step in time, it works its way into the New England states. It does include Boston. It does include Rhode Island. It includes the elevated terrain of Vermont and New Hampshire, and then off the shore of Maine as the storm strengthens and becomes what we kind of call a nor'easter. Now, here's a look at the snowfall potential with this particular system on the European model. Is it fairly close? So we'll load that up for you here, and we will take a peek. And what we will notice is that as we go through the first 42 hours, the mountains of California have a bullseye here, right? And we're talking 6 to 10 inches, very similar to what we're seeing on the good old-fashioned American model. There's agreement that the elevated terrain of both Arizona and New Mexico will see anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of snow. And as we carry this out into the day on Friday morning, look at that snow head through southeast Colorado. And here again, 4 to 6 inches or more possible in the mountains of northeast New Mexico and the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma. Southern Kansas, not out of the woods with this system either. Now, as we carry this through in time to allow the model to go out to bring the system into the East Coast, who's impacted? Notice that the heaviest band of snow is in central and eastern PA, and as we look into the mid-Atlantic states, it does have an impact in and around Cape Cod. It does have that influence in much of Massachusetts, but it may be offshore more, bringing lower snow amounts to places like Boston. So we'll keep our eyes on that, but it's a good point for me to bring out to you that the models are different. The farther out in time we go, the more different they tend to be. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson. If you've liked what you've seen here, throw a like on there. That really helps me out. Subscribe to my page, Hutch's Weather, and you can see more on hutchesweather.com. I hope you have a wonderful first week of the new year. An active pattern looks to be fairly certain. The track of each storm, uncertain. Keep up to date with your local weather from your favorite source and check in with me from time to time.